Hi there, sixth graders. Happy Monday. Hope you're all doing fabulous. Today we're going to wrap up the Persian War because I realized on Friday I just kind of left it after Thermopylae. Very quickly, going to wrap that up, and then we're going to start talking about types of government found in Greek city states and actually around the world. This will be an exploration of types of government in the next few days that connect not just to Greek history but to all of world history. So, wrap up the Persian War. You can tell if you're looking at that picture what type of battle that the Persian War ended with. It was a navy battle. Yeah. After Thermopylae, the Persians marched south. They destroyed Athens, and but they didn't really kill any people because the Spartans bought time for them to evacuate and regroup. And many of the soldiers of Athens and the other Greek city states were aboard ships. And they coax the Persians to try to follow them. And they lead them into a channel off of Athens, which is really narrow, which is nearby an island called Salami. And at the Battle of Salami, the smaller, fast ships of the Greeks, which are called trimaes, destroyed the big, huge battleships that were built by the Persians. The Persian ships were bigger, could carry a whole lot more warriors, but the Greek ships were smaller and faster and designed to ram right into the side of the other ships. And once you rammed into them, the other ship would start to sink, and you would board their ship and try to attack their sailors. And this would repeat. And we're going to see that a good chunk of the Persian fleet in the Aegean is destroyed in this one battle. A final battle the following year at Plataea will say to the Persians, you know what? There's no way we're going to take Greece right now. And they withdraw from the Aegean and eventually get pulled into their own domestic affairs. And Greece is no longer threatened by the Persians. The Persians kind of go off. We're going to see that eventually Greeks and Persians will fight again when we get into the reign of Alexander the Great. But for right now, the Persians are doing their thing, and this allows the Greeks to do their thing as well and start growing very quickly. We talked about how in each Greek city-state they had their own system of government. The rest of this lesson, we're going to explore what some of those systems of government were. For each of these, you're going to see I put a symbol on there to kind of illustrate for you what we're talking about. So you see a crown here. Usually if I see a crown, I think of a king or a queen. And that's what we're talking about. Rule of a king or queen. Somebody who inherits power. You can label it whatever you want, an emperor or so on and so forth, a czar. But the idea is, I'm the king, I die. Now my oldest son, or in some rare cases, my oldest daughter, will now take over the government. Their only qualification to rule is that they are the oldest living child of the old king. So rule is inherited. The word monarchy comes from the words mono in Greek, meaning one, and archos, which means ruler. So it's ruled by one ruler. A king doesn't have to debate with anybody, argue with anybody. They dictate what the government is going to do. And in early Greek history, just like much of human history, kingships and monarchies are pretty much the dominant form of government. Each different city-state has its own king. And we're going to see that they often would compete against one another to try to expand their territory. The Minoans on the island of Crete, which is one of the earliest Hellenistic civilizations, were a monarchy ruled by a king. We're going to see that another form of government that arises, instead of ruled by one king, is rule who inherits power. It's ruled by a class of people who inherit power. So similar to monarchy that you inherit, but in this time is a group of people, a group of elite families who are born into nobility. Think when we talked about ancient Rome, the patrician class, that this class was above everybody else, so therefore had the right to rule over everybody. And there was definitely a bit of aristocracy in that idea in ancient Rome, where you inherited privilege, you inherited power, you inherited the right to rule simply because of the families that you were born into. And typically when we see an aristocracy, people hold titles like lord or baron or lady or so on and so forth. They have an official title in front of their name, marquis, that indicates that I am above everybody else. I own this plot of land. My family will own it forever, and I will always have a say. And aristocracies are going to have a very big power in much of European history. If we look at the caste system in India, the aristocracy in China, ruled by a wealthy, rich group of families is something that has been a common form of rule as well. And in Athens, this was the initial form of rule. After they overthrew their first king, the rich, wealthy class ruled. But we're going to see that doesn't last forever either. I have a gold dollar sign and a big pile of money with the word inherit symbolizing them. One of the things I always think of with the word aristocracy is if you're a member of the aristocracy, your nose is in the air. You look down on everybody. You think you're better than everybody. So the aristocracy, I'm so much better than you. Our next form of government, you see we have a military helmet, a Spartan helmet, and this is an oligarchy. An oligarchy is when power is held by an elite group. So it's similar to the aristocracy that you have an elite group. But in this case, it's not necessarily that you inherit power. It's earned power. So if you're a member of a group and you earn it, so if you look at like corporate oligarchies, like similar to what we see in Russia right now, where if you're prove yourself in the corporation and build yourself up and the business up, you move up ranks. We see sometimes an oligarchy when you have total party control. For example, even elements of fascism or communism have elements of an oligarchy in that manner, that you have to be a member of that elite party and move up rank in that party in order to be part of the elite rulers. But the most common form of oligarchy that we're going to talk about with Greece is a military oligarchy. In order to become the leaders of the military, I have to prove myself on the battlefield. I have to prove that I am the most talented, the best educated, the hardest working. It's the idea that only those who have proven that they're worthy of leading should be allowed to lead. That you don't inherit it. You shouldn't be allowed to lead just because of who your dad was. You should be allowed to lead because of all that you've accomplished that proves that you're worthy of that. So the idea that the best should rule, that's going to influence some ideas of government. They don't just inherit it. But we're also going to see that there's definitely some elitist and unfair elements in an oligarchy as well. And they often rely on exploitation of everybody else who is not in that group. For example, the Spartans really are brutal with their slaves, the Helots, who they really just do horrible things to because they see themselves as superior to them. Last form of government before we get to the road to ours is a tyranny. A tyranny is a government that's held by one person that has absolute power and often rules in a way that is selfish. And we're going to see that some tyrants, like the dictators in ancient Rome, sometimes would step in place in time of emergency when if there was an overthrow of a kingdom or something like that. But we're going to see that some tyrants, just don't leave, and they would govern with only their interests in mind. And tyranny as a form of government, rule of one with absolute power, who can crush anyone who stands against him, unfortunately has been a form of government that's been commonly used throughout history as well, because absolute power corrupts absolutely. Corinth, in a good part of its history, was ruled by a tyrant, and we see the fist ready to crush those who stand against him as a symbol of tyranny. I often think of the word tyranny, reminds me of a Tyrannosaurus, and similar roots from Greece, and that the Tyrannosaurus doesn't care about any of the other dinosaurs. It only cares about itself. And if you get in a Tyrannosaurus's path, it will crush you and devour you. Well, the tyrant who rules a tyranny, if you get into their path, if you try to stand up against them, they will crush you and devour you. Not a good form of government. The last one we're going to leave off on, and then in the next lesson, we're going to really explore a lot more detail, is a democracy. A democracy, to use the words of Abraham Lincoln, is ruled by the people, for the people, of the people. It comes from the Greek words demos, meaning the people, and kratos, meaning rule by. So it's rule by the people. And in Athens, after they overthrew the king, and then after they overthrew the ruling aristocracy, which many felt was unfair, they decided to let all citizens have a say in their rules, in their laws, and whoever was in the majority, that's what the law would be. So any decision, if as long as you have 51% supporting it, that's what's going to be happening. The rule of the majority rule. And we're going to see that Athens during its golden age will be governed with a democracy. And this will be very influential on the Roman Republic, on our republic, and on many different ideas throughout Western history. That being said, we'll explore this in a lot more detail in the next lesson. The Athenian democracy was certainly undemocratic to any non-citizens, and it wasn't like rule of everyone. But we'll explore that a little bit more, but the basic idea is democracy is ruled by the people, ruled by the majority. So, what I'd like you to do is finish the following phrase, rule by, in regards to each of the types of governments that we talked about, and use only like one or two words to describe each government. So a monarchy is ruled by blank, aristocracy is ruled by blank, oligarchy ruled by blank, tyranny ruled by blank, and democracy ruled by blank. And then you're done. Thanks for watching. Have a marvelous Monday, and I look forward to working with you throughout the week.